You're an attention to detail man, so you've had this weave, also it's looking correct. All the buttons have been put back in. That would have taken quite a bit of time. Hi and welcome to the Gr.A BlendLine YouTube channel. Today you join me at RDR Developments, a specialist in building and rebuilding Toyota race and rally cars. Come on in, let's go for a look. Morning.
Good morning. Do you want to introduce me or what?
I will
Okay.
certainly introduce
Yeah.
you. Don, how are you doing?
I'm going good, mate.
Good, nice to meet you. Nice to see you in your new building as well.
Yep.
RDR Developments, your new project, but you've certainly not appeared on the scene out of nowhere, have you? You've done quite a few years of hard graft in this game, Toyotas mainly.
1990, TTE came to New Zealand and I worked as a freelance contractor in a tyre truck. And what used to happen was when Toyota came to New Zealand in those days, they used to take people from Toyota dealerships. And because I'd worked in a Toyota dealership, my old foreman rang me up and said, look, we need guys to go and do the rally, and I know that you want to work for TTE, would you be interested? And I said, yeah mate, I'm in. So I went and did the rally. First day I started off in a tyre truck and was really enthusiastic and working with the team hard. And on the second day, the big boss, who was an Irishman, Richard Cregan, said to me, I want you to run tomorrow in Merc 3, go and do the rally in Merc 3. So I did that second day in Merc 3 and I was working with another Kiwi bloke named Kevin Verright, Pete Driesen, who's now the workshop manager at TMG in Cologne. And so I did the day with them and then we finished the rally in the tyre truck, and after the rally, Richard Cregan came up to me and says, Don, what are you doing the rest of your life? And I said, oh, I'm just hanging out here in New Zealand, working in a speed shop. And he said, would you be interested in coming to Germany for 5 years to build WRC cars? I said, yeah mate, I'm in. So took 1 year for a visa.
Wow.
Yeah, in the application it said 8 weeks and it was 1 year, and I was just pulling my hair out and I'm filling in time waiting to go. Every week I was hanging on the phone, oh, you're going to go, you're going to go. And then finally they came across for the rally in 91 with Carlos. And we did the rally and then that was it. I was going to Cologne. So we packed up and I ended up in Cologne for 4 years.
So you're in Cologne, you've got, obviously Carlos Sainz has come onto the scene in a fairly major way at this point. He's competing in a car shaped similar to this one, so it's the old 165 shape.
Yeah, so
okay.
Back then we would have had Ericsson, we would have had Sainz and Armin Schwartz.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's...
And Bjorn Waldegaard. Bjorn Waldegaard was doing
cool.
Safari.
Yeah.
He was a Safari specialist.
Okay, so Safari, I mean, that was obviously a big deal in its day, especially for Toyota. Like, they used to take basically an army across, didn't they, to Africa, to Kenya. Like a plane full of like helicopters, trucks,
Oh, we
4x4s.
yeah.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it?
It was a whole complete different budget, different spec car. Cars built like Panzers, incredibly strong, full crew, and the stuff we used to load was just incredible. When I started off in the suspension shop, and for Safari Rally I'd be building 200 struts to run 3 cars.
Yeah.
And we'd start months before, and imagine building 200 struts and you have to prep them, paint them, put bearings in, then you have to weld washers on them, then you have to bleed them, and it's like we had a big container. We worked in a workshop in Nairobi, and we used to lay them all out in the container, and they were all colour coded. We used to do a high speed test before the rally, so we did basically a rally before the rally, to see what would break on the cars, and boy, that was hard yakka. 2 or 3 weeks of hard yakka. But it was great.
And then you kind of moved on in 93 into that era, ST185.
92.
92, okay.
92 was the transition period. So 92 they came out with the ST185.
Yeah.
And the new concept was this car had steel suspension, we developed an aluminium suspension. So we built the 92 car and we struggled with it, to be honest. We couldn't get the suspension to work. So we tried all sorts of things, and we found a few design faults in the suspension where the shock tubes were made in aluminium and we changed them to steel. We had problems with the bottom spigot snapping off, so we made those in steel, and the rear carriers we made them in steel. So 92 we struggled through the season, and in those days 92 we could run the big 8-inch tyre. So Carlos struggled in 92, you know, the car just, we couldn't get the handling right, couldn't get it sorted. We struggled on, got through the season, and then 93 came. So 93 came, rule change. So the rules in 93 was, you ran a smaller tyre, Michelin. We had to carry the spare turbos in the car. So what happened then was everybody knocked off at 92, and me and a Belgian guy had to stay back. And I couldn't go back. I used to go back to New Zealand every year and I couldn't afford to go back. And the boss came up to me and said, are you interested in working on the 93 test car for Monte Carlo? And at that stage I was only working in the suspension shop. I did like 18 months sub-assembly, building suspension, brakes, and all that kind of top mounts, power steering racks, pumps and all of that. So I said, yeah, I'd like that, that'd be a challenge. Yeah, I'd like to go. So we started building the 93 car, and it was a beautiful car. Like, me and Ollie cracked into it and really put some heart and soul into it, made a lightweight, like it was a lightweight. I made all the turbo mounts in the back where we used to bolt the turbo in, and we built the car. In 93 went to Monte Carlo test, and we were all pretty confident. We then had gone to a viscous coupling, and we went to the test, and we were running with Mark Dewars in the south of France. And first day we're testing the car, and Mark got out of the car and he says, this car is not working. I says, and I was with Michel Nondon then, he was our engineer, and I said, and we said, like, what's going on, mate? And he said, oh, rear suspension's not working. He said, it's solid. It's like driving a go-kart. I said, all right. So Nondon says to me, just pull the rear radius rods off. So I pulled the rear radius rods off, jumped in the truck. He says, right, cut them. So we cut them with a grinder. We extended them by, I don't know how much. We put a sleeve inside them, we welded them all back together, and we put them on the car. He went out, did a run, came back, and the smile was incredible.
Transformed it.
Oh, suddenly we had this weapon. So from there we spent 2 weeks testing, developing, and the thing would just get faster and faster and faster. So we come to 93 Monte Carlo and we're thinking, new car, you know, it's going to be tough. Ford have arrived now with the Cosworth, and on paper it looked the business. So there we go, into 93 Monte Carlo, fighting with, I think it was Delacour, and it was the best rally ever. God, it's like, we fought right to the end, and I think Didier won it by 8 seconds or something stupid, but it was an awesome rally, awesome.
At this point we had the ST185, which was the main title contender for Toyota. They had Didier Oil and Juha Kankkunen as the main protagonists for the title. You must have had some pretty mega memories of this car in this era.
Yeah, awesome car. Super light. We used a lot of new engineering componentry on this. We used a lot of, had different specs. Tarmac, we were allowed to use titanium nuts and bolts. We had lightweight glass. Windscreen was so thin you had 2 people to carry it. And just, yeah, a lot of development. This car started off fast, straight out of the box. And then we just developed it and developed it and developed it till we got to 94 and the thing was unbeatable. Reliable, fast and strong. 94 I worked with Didier Oil. I built most of his cars, me and a Swedish guy named Ralph Pedersen. And he was our driver for 94. He was a very temperamental little chappy. When things weren't going right, he'd sort of give up, whereas Sainz, working with Sainz, he was a fighter. He'd come out, wreck the car, and continue to win rallies. We'd rebuild him, and he'd just keep fighting. He'd bring a car out with no front on it, wheels hanging off it, we'd fix it, and we'd just crack on and get the job done.
Sainz was famed for, like, turning up at tests. He'd have, like, way more hours of testing, wouldn't he, and kilometres of testing than the other guy. Whereas Didier was a little bit more sort of turn up, do the job, go home.
Yeah, a little bit more systematic. He you know, he was good in that aspect. As once he got his feel and knew his direction, he was just happy when the car was right. Very temperamental on toe and wheel alignment setup. You know, he'd drive the car and come out and say, nah, toes out straight away. Put it on, we had a measurement trailer, we used to do the wheel alignment on, we'd go straight on the measurement trailer. 9 times out of 10 he was right.
I mean, this car, let's have a look at it. It belongs to Nicky Grist, who obviously needs no introduction. We're going to have a chat with Nicky in just a moment. It's a genuine factory car. It's one that you will have worked on back in the day. This car was driven by both Sainz and Oriole, Australia and Sweden. So could we have a look around the car?
Yeah, sure.
So this is business end, Toyota 3S GTE engine. But there's obviously quite a lot of work gone into this to make it look as good as it does. You've done a fair bit.
I've done a lot of the external stuff. We had to put a new turbo on it and just done all the bits and pieces around it, tidy it all up, get it looking a little bit more humane. Change ignition system to correct ignitions, CDI, and we had it dyno tuned and set up to run correctly.
There's a lot of work has gone into getting the correct weave in the correct orientation on this, because there was originally, I remember, the weave was going the other way, but I know you're an attention to detail man, so you've had this weave also, it's looking correct, all the buttons have been put back in. That would have taken quite a bit of time.
I need to get this one. Right, you don't see rally cars that clean in the back.
No.
That was like your pride and joy, the boot of this, wasn't it? You spent a lot of time cleaning it.
Yeah, getting the jack the right colour, putting the diff cooler and lines in. They were missing.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Have a look at so you've got the X-Track H pattern, but also next to it, that little lever there is a adjuster for the front anti-roll bar, so you can make it softer or stiffer. And I think there's, what, Don, 6 settings?
Yep. 92, you could have adjustable front and rear. ST165 had adjustable front and rear, and you could have different blades for different stiffness. So for tarmac we use the titanium blade, and for gravel we use the stainless steel blade. And the blade could be fixed on one side and adjustable on the other, and you could also have adjustable at both ends as well. So the cars were fully adjustable and up to drivers' feel and preference.
You've done a lot of development work on this particular car to bring it back to this spec, and I know you've done lots and lots of rebuilding, painting, sourcing parts. Tell us a little bit about the work that's gone into rebuilding something like this to keep it factory spec.
Well, yeah, when we got it, she was in a bit of a state. Had different lengths, arms on it, different colours. So basically what I've done is bought it, because I worked in the suspension shop, brought it back to the spec it should have been when it was in tarmac. So in tarmac spec, this used to run a diff cooler for long stages, which is mounted in the boot. That's the diff cooler pump there with a filter. That was all missing. So I had to make all the mounts and put it all back up, plumb all that up. Josh, the diff we use is a super diff, but it's a plated LSD, so that was all a mess. So that all this was pulled out and stripped, sandblasted and painted and put back together in the right colours. The rods for tarmac are black. For gravel they used to be white. The markings on the roll bar, the blue marking means that's a tarmac roll bar because it's got the blue. Everything tarmac was marked in blue. So I just basically put all the detail back into it. The rear brake discs are marked in green because everything was colour coded, so you knew what they were. But yeah, the car was in a real bad state when we got it, and I've just pulled it all apart and redone it all again.
And it's important to remember that this car is still being used in 2017, 18, 19. Nicky Grist, UHA, has also done a rally with this car. They did Trasmira, and then Nicky's done Eiffel Rally, he's done Lombard Bath, he's done the Chester Rally Revival.
Yeah, when we did the car, Nick didn't want it to be a showpiece. He wanted to show that it's a car that's, after 27 years of rallying, is still alive and still as the way it was in the day. So we basically just tidied it up, cleaned it up, and brought it back to its glory. I
think it's fair to say that this is probably one of the most immaculate ST185 still in circulation today that isn't a showpiece in Cologne, in TTE. Obviously the fact that some of the guys that have driven this more recently, Jari-Matti Latvala has driven it, obviously Kankkunen, plus the guys that drove it back in the day, it's a real testament to the build quality of it.
Oh yeah, unbreakable. Like, the only thing that these things lack really was suspension travel, but apart from that, the strength in the suspension arms, The engines were strong, the gearboxes were strong, pretty bulletproof package. Good brakes, good suspension. People think a WRC car is hard to drive. WRC car is actually quite easy to drive because everything is adjustable. You can set it up to whatever you want and they'll do whatever you want them to do. When you're in one of these and it's on fire, they are absolutely insane. The fastest I've ever been in one of these was on snow. It was 92 with Mr. Kankinen. I built his Swedish car and he took me out on snow. It was unbelievable. The braking and accelerating on studs is more violent than being on tarmac. I've never been slammed around so hard in a car. So you're braking really hard, you're accelerating real hard, and then you go into a corner and it's a big sweeping corner. And then you bounce off the snowbank, come back out, and hard on it again. And that's why people don't realise driving on snow breaks the drivetrain because you've got so much traction with spikes. It's unbelievable.
Nicky, thank you for letting us come down, and we've just been having a look around your lovely Celica Gr.A car. Really, for you, there was only one person and one company in mind for you to actually look after the car, wasn't there? And it was Don.
It was. Obviously, Don and I go back a long way. Having worked with him within TT back in the glory days of the 185, and really, I just fell in love with the Celica, having spending 4 months testing in Kenya with it, to winning my first World Championship rally with UR in Argentina, to going on and winning my first Rally GB in ice and snow, and they were just indestructible. And I had to buy one eventually, found one. Unfortunately, over the years, unless you've got real knowledge of how these cars were built back in the day, things had disappeared, alternative parts, bits and pieces had been fitted to the car, and I needed somebody that knew the ins and outs of it and could put it back to the way it was. And to be honest, Don was the man. And I mean, I was conscious of the fact that this car has been rallied for 27 years. And I didn't want it to look brand spanking new. I wanted to be right, and I wanted to look good, but I also wanted to keep the slight digs and dents that it's picked up over the years, because people have had it and crashed it and repaired it, and you can see that. But that's part of its history. But what Don has done is fabulous, and we're just finishing off a few other bits and pieces now, and then that will probably be it. And yeah, look forward to getting out with it as soon as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it'd be really good to see the car when we can get out and do some rallying. And yeah, I was lucky enough to sit alongside you at Rally Day a couple of years back in that car, and that was great, to experience it firsthand. And there are so few of those Celicas in circulation today. It was really nice to see. So hopefully, when we can come back and we can have a look and
you're absolutely more than welcome. But with a guy with that much experience, we're really lacking an individual that could handle one-off jobs in the UK. And I'm glad that Don has settled into this part of the world in Herefordshire. He's got his workshop there, and he can turn his hand to anything. He's a top world-class mechanic, and what price can you put on that? He's the ideal man, because he'll do it right.
So after Toyota, you were approached a few years later by Hyundai World Rally Team.
So what happened was, I was doing Australia Rally and I ran into some of the boys at Hyundai, which were some of my old bosses from Toyota. They said, would you be interested in coming back to do WRC? I said, yeah, for sure. So they invited me back, and I started off as a number 5 on Danny Sordo's car. So I started working in there as a mechanic, and then things in the team went really good when I started. And then I spoke to the workshop foreman manager and said, look, we need to sort this team out. It's not working. And he said, well, that's why you're here. That's part of your job. I says, what do you mean? I says, I'm employed as a car builder. He said, no. I said, I need some experienced people to get this team to gel, to get it to work. So I worked on the Sordo car for a while, and then I was put into the test team. So I started off in the test team with 4 new mechanics that had just joined motorsport, and we were building a thing called a Labo car, which was the prototype of the 217 car. So
current gen WRC car, essentially.
Yeah, current shape, but it was the first edition of that. So we built this car with 4 of the new guys and trained and worked it all up, and we used that to do all the shakedown and all the development for the current spec cars. So we did that, and then after that, the boss says to me, well, now that you've sort of done the development side of this thing, we'd like you to become the workshop foreman and crew chief. I said, oh yeah, that'll be a challenge. So I became the crew chief and crew chief and workshop car build foreman. So from there I started controlling the builds of the cars. And basically the plan was, because when you've got creative people, you can't get 3 cars exactly the same. But because of the eye I have for detail and stuff, we managed to get the team to start work together. We started to get the car build crews working together. So in the end, basically you could take one part off one car and fit it on the other car, which is what was taught to me at Toyota. We always built everything the same. I was building tailgates, you build all so that we knew that the spec was all the same. So yeah, that was a challenge. We had like 32 nationalities, you know, and not a lot of downtime. Running had changed a lot now, so
yeah,
I was away every 10 days.
You were flying literally worldwide for constantly, yeah.
And it just, towards the end of it, you know, we had a couple of chances of winning world titles, and then things weren't quite right in the team, and I decided it was time to leave. Hayden wasn't getting treated fair.
I was going to mention Hayden. So he's a big Hayden fan, and John Kennard, a pair of fellow Kiwis, fellow New Zealanders. So it must have been quite nice working with them on the other side of the world.
Oh, it was great. You know, like the whole inspiration of going was to actually possibly work with the first Kiwi world champion. And you know, we could have almost done it, but just due to politics and motorsport. When I started there, we had a lot of, you know, he was getting a bit of a rough deal, but we had Kiwis in the key places. The engine boss was a Kiwi, and I was in charge of car builds. He used to end up starting to get a bit of a raw deal. One stage we worked out he had something like 11 power steering rack failures. So in the end one day, because I'd worked at Toyota doing suspension, got the last failed power steering rack, took it into the sub-assembly room, stripped it myself in front of all the engineers, and explained to them why it had failed. And the reason it failed was the people that were building the racks, they were built outside house, were just rough.
Were they the same racks that won like Neville's car and Sordo's car?
Yeah. I couldn't believe the quality of the work. And I said, either you get the supplier to step up his game, or I'll start building them in-house, because I was building them at Toyota. And due to politics and stuff, they lifted the game, and then suddenly you didn't have power steering rack failures anymore. You know, the engine boss and myself, and we always had his back to try and get him to the end, you know. The team didn't really do the right thing by him. He lost his way a little bit, and that affected his career, which was sad because he was fast enough. And in the last year he drove for us, he scored the most points. He was, you know, he had a limited driving seat time, and he still produced the goods. And to not get a drive the following year was quite sad. So that was part of the reason why I left too. You know, it was like I just wasn't fair.
I could talk to Don all day about WRC cars and drivers and times of old, but I wanted to have a look at some of the other cars in the workshop. So let's have a look at this nice ST165. This is a 1989 Group N car, so this was campaigned in the British Championship, and you've had this in recently. The customer has approached you because of the quality of your work, so you've done a lot inside, rerouting stuff, tidying stuff up, painting.
Yeah. The car, when it came to me, was quite dangerous. There was bolts missing out of the roll cage. There was the seats weren't mounted properly. It just needed sorting out. We knew that when we saw the car that the base of the car was good, but we just needed to get it to where it needed to be. So with a bit of, you know, hard graft and stuff, we've worked our way through it and got to where the customer's really happy with it. Seating position he's very happy with. And we've, you know, given it like a bit of a WRC look about it.
The Repsol colours?
Yeah.
These were originally in Securical colours, weren't they?
Yes. This car's been in a few different colours.
No, it looks really nice, very cool. And it's nice to see this car is still competing as well. We saw this car out in Lombard, Bradley Bath a couple of years ago. Attracted a lot of attention, which is great for you. You've obviously got a full machine shop over there. Should we have a quick look at that before we go?
Sure.
Because this is proper like nerdy stuff, but I like it, you know, it's good. You can do everything more or less in-house here.
Basically what we want to do is be able to do everything in-house. So we've got a little machine shop here. I've got a little welding area down the end there where we can do TIG and MIG welding. Eventually we will end up with a CNC machine that'll be sitting there. And the whole idea is we can do everything in-house and be able to do bespoke work as well. You know, we're going to be developing other stuff as well, working on different projects. A lot of our work is bespoke, so we decided that we'd gear ourselves up to be able to do as much as we can in-house.
So thanks, Don, for letting us have a look around your brand new premises today. It's been really nice to see these cars in the flesh and catch up with you. How should people contact you if they need work doing on a Toyota? What's the best method to get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with us on Facebook or Instagram, or go onto our website.
rdrdevelopments.com?
Yes.
Cool. We'll stick some links in underneath. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and there'll be plenty more videos like this to come.
Thank you.